Okay, so this teaching is incredible, special, very special to me personally, because about 9 years ago, um, there was a woman who was nudging for classes, for women's classes in our community, in our Chabad community. And at the time, I still have little ones, Baruch Hashem, but I wasn't really, into it. And my mother said, honey, I'm going to come once a month to Tom's River and I'm going to teach a class, Tia and Torah, um, basically to help me out. So she came, and I don't know. I don't know how many, I don't know at what point this class was, but when my mother taught this class that we're going to learn today, she taught this very teaching 9 years ago. I all of a sudden realized I realized that there's a huge treasure here. And at the time, I had a bas mitzvah club. And this was the first time I wrote a poem for the parsha, like for a teaching on the parsha, was for this teaching 9 years ago, which I did with bas mitzvah girls, Mushka and a few girls that were not religious, and we have a blog with every single parsha of the week, a poem from 9 years ago, and it all started because I was so taken by this teaching. So all of a sudden, when I saw that this is a teaching that we're doing today, I was like, wow. And I actually went back to that blog and found the poem that I wrote then. And it was just really, really cute to see that. So the question, which is very relevant today, as it was then, as it always is, we have in this week's Parsha, the story of the Akedah. And Avraham is ready to give up his son's life because it's what Hashem asked of him. And the question is, there are many other people that are even not Jewish that are willing to sacrifice for their religion. So what makes the Akedah so special? And you know what? We say it every single day in our davening. So what is it about the Akedah that is so special? There were many other people that died al Kiddush Hashem, that sacrificed their life, from Hanan, her 7 sons, to Rabbi Akiva, to October 7th. So what is so amazing about Avraham Avinu compared to all the other Kedoshim and all the other generations? And lahavdil, what is the difference between the Akedah and Al Qaeda? There are people that in other faiths that are willing to give up their life, suicide bombers, terrorists. I'm saying we know for sure there's a difference, but what exactly is the difference? There are people that are willing to give up their life for their beliefs, for their ideals. So this is the question that we're going to explore today. Okay. So if you look in the Chumash, if you look in the Pasuk, and also we know this from our davening every day, Hashem comes to Avram, what does Hashem say? Kach na es bincha. Please do me a favor. Welcome. Please do me a favor and please take your son. So our sages explain, why does Hashem say please? He was saying, I have confronted you with many challenges, and you have overcome them all. Overcome this challenge for me, so it will not be said that the first ones were without substance. Okay, so we know that Avram had 10 tests. The Akedah is test number 10. And our sages explain that what's Hashem saying? Please pass this 10th test, because if you do, then it will show that all the other nine tests were that you passed them, and it has substance. Why? That's exactly the question. And if you don't pass this 10th test, then we could question all the other 9 if they were really so great. So our question, the question that we're basing this, the question that the foundational question is, why would it be said that Avram's success in overcoming the challenges he previously confronted lacked substance if he failed to pass the ultimate challenge of the Akedah? Why is it that only if he passes the Akedah, then all the other 9 are good? Otherwise, the other 9 are flawed. Why can't we just say he passed 9 tests? That was great. If he didn't pass the 10th was too hard, but the other 9 still are valid. So we see, so one of the interpretations of why is Hashem saying, Kachna, please take your son, because this test is not just about the 10th test, but rather it reflects on the other 9. What is so amazing about this 10th test that Hashem needs him to pass it, because if not, all the other 9 are basically null and void. Thank you. Okay.
This test was so beyond that you really have to believe that Hashem is in control.
Yeah, you're thinking.
The other ones,
Yeah, I know.
the other ones could just kind of be like, okay, so he was in the fire, then he came out of the fire. But this is like your child, it's something so strong.
Also like really believing.
Okay, so we're gonna ask, we're gonna try to answer why that Akedah is so special, and then we're gonna refute it. So the first thing that we could say, as you said, Hani, is it's harder to sacrifice your child than to give up your own life. So maybe what was so special about that Akedah, that here he's killing his child for Hashem. However, we can't be satisfied with that explanation, because number one, Hannah gave up 7 sons, not 1 son. And there are many times in Jewish history that people gave their life. Okay, very good. It gave his future, very good. Okay, so we're gonna go. All this is correct. We're gonna take argument after argument to try to prove why the Akedah is more special than everything else, layer by layer, until we get to the core of what was so special about the Akedah. Okay, so first we could say, we're going to say, what's so amazing about the Akedah that we say it every single day in davening, and we always ask Hashem to remember the Akedah, whether it be Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and davening, we're always mentioning the Akedah. Why? Because
That's really like, it's so unrealistic. And he didn't question it. So it's just like, okay, tell me to do it. It's like telling someone to walk in the middle of the Garden State Parkway and just cross the street. It's like,
No, it's a backbone of who we are as a nation, exactly.
right, so that's what it is. It's just really blind faith. This is what Hashem told me to do, and this is what I'm gonna do. I waited 100 years to have a kid, and now this is what I'm doing. But
Okay.
Hannah did it, but it was later. Maybe that was, she said, hey, Avram did it, maybe Hashem's gonna do an ace for me too, so I could do it. You don't know what her intention was.
interesting. Okay, so everything that you're saying is all true. We're going to take it step by step, and we're going to get to the core of what makes that Akedah so special. Okay, so first we could say, sacrificing a person's only son for the sanctification of God's name is far more difficult and deep-seated challenge than sacrificing one's own life. Okay, but we find not only Hannah and her 7 sons, but we find even during we find there were many occasions throughout history where people sacrificed their children. There's a story during the time of the Holocaust. The Nazis rounded up 1,500 yeshiva boys. And there was a father, and he realized that his son was among the 1,500 boys. And he knew one of the Nazi guards. So he took a gold pocket watch, and he went over to the guard, and he said, listen, I'll bribe you with this pocket watch just if you could please release my son. So the Nazi said, no problem. I could let him go, but tomorrow I have to give 1,500 boys. So if I let your son go, I have to take someone else instead. So he didn't know what to do. So he went to his Rav, to his rabbi, and he asked him what to do. The rabbi was poring over books, trying to find what the halacha would be. And afterwards he said to him, whatever you do, either way, I could find reason for this, I could find reason for that. I can't tell you what to do. Whatever you do is whatever you do is okay. Whatever you do is okay. And he did not free his son because he knew that if he would take his son out, then another boy would be taken instead. So he couldn't have that. He didn't want to take that responsibility, that achrayus on his shoulders, that someone else was killed because he pulled his son out. That's a huge, huge sacrifice. So it's not just something that happened in Avram's time. Yes, Avram was asked to sacrifice his son, but in the very recent,
We're talking about now.
yeah, I'm saying wherever we turn, we see a self-sacrifice, and we see sacrificing a son is not just something novel that Avraham Avinu did, but rather it's something that unfortunately, throughout history, people had to do. The Jewish people, whether it be in the Spanish Inquisition, any time of Jewish persecution, the fact
That's like, it's a trajectory of our lives.
throughout every generation, our enemies stood up to fight against us, and today, today, Baruch Hashem, we're not living. I mean, it's a different kind of it's not Mesiras Nefesh like it was. It's hard to say because we have our own Mesiras Nefesh giving up. Our soldiers in Gaza and Lebanon. That's people giving up. They're sending their sons and sacrificing their sons, and when they send their boys, they don't know that every single one is going to come back. So we have that today. We don't have to look. We don't have to look at previous generations. We have it right now in front. Right now, we have it right now. People sacrifice moms, fathers. That their sons are on the battlefield to protect the Yidden. So I'm saying the circumstances may be a little bit different, but in every generation we see this. So that's not what's novel to the Akedah that Avram had to give up his son. There has to be something deeper. Okay, so next Svara. Next, I'm going to try again. Okay. What was so unique about the binding of Isaac? What was so unique about the Akedah? There was nothing compelling Avraham at all. Even God's command did not compel him. Why? Because Avram says to Hashem, I could have objected when you told me, take your only son and sacrifice him for me. Avram says, I could have objected and I could have said, did you not promise me that your progeny will be called after Yitzchak? So when Hashem comes to Avram could have said, listen, Hashem, you made a promise that through Yitzchak, the Jewish people are going to continue. How could you ask me to sacrifice my son? And therefore, Hashem says, Kachna, please take your son. God was making a request of Abraham. It was not a compelling command. It was not a compelling command because Hashem had already promised that through Yitzchak, the Jewish people would continue. So when Hashem says, please take your son, Hashem wasn't forcing him. He did, and he did it anyway. So that's why the Akedah is so special. The Akedah is so special because he didn't have to, because he had already had a promise from Hashem that through Yitzchak, the Jewish people are going to come, and yet he still listened to Hashem. This is what's so great about the Akedah. Yeah.
Are you saying it was out of like a more of a suggestion, like a soft request, versus then you need to?
Excellent. Excellent. So go ahead.
It wasn't really, because you're saying that if he passes this, then the other ones will show that they were
valid. Yes.
valid. So it seems like it's when a parent says to you do something, they really mean it, but they kind of say it in this nice way. But if you don't do it, whatever. So it sounds like it's the same kind of thing, right?
I'm not sure. Tani's saying it a little differently. She's saying it, he had his promise from Hashem that we will all be here. Yeah, so we had that. And knowing that, that was his like safety, security blanket. Pull it one little piece of your heart. In his other heart, he wanted you to suffer. Right. He
And
said,
the fact that he said no, it's not like a direct one, let the phone go.
Right.
Now it's his own will. that he's
Right,
doing.
it's his own will, but then in the next sentence, it says that if you pass this test, then it's gonna make it that all the other tests.
Oh, no, that's just what the sages are interpreting from the word no. The sages are interpreting, why does he say, please do it? Because Hashem is like, please, please, because I need you to do this to prove that all the other tests are valid.
Because this whole thing of monotheism with him is that he was proving paganism wrong. And this is against everything we've been teaching. So this proves that this is one person who changed the whole world. Why is Avram so different? The whole world was doing paganism and Avodah, and they were sacrificing their kids. And now he's doing everything that he did to stand for and doing what he did wrong, and that's Hashem's time to do. It makes him look so, that's the ultimate test that you are doing, and he went and did it. So that's Hashem.
Yeah. Okay, that's also a beautiful, that's an incredible thing that here he was fighting and telling everyone don't sacrifice your children for.
And that's why he kept everybody following him. And
Yeah.
Hashem's telling him to do something so opposite of what he was preaching.
Yes,
That's what he got.
yes.
And that was the ultimate test, because I'm doing what Hashem saying, not for my belief, not for anything, but for you, Hashem.
Right.
I mean, that's not my thought. I learned this.
Yeah, no, 100%. Okay, so so going back to we want to make a comparison between between Hashem saying, please sacrifice your son, versus all the other times that Jewish people sacrificed for Hashem. Jewish people have a command from Hashem. It says, there's a verse that says, and I shall be sanctified amidst the children of Israel. Self-sacrifice was required of them by Torah law. So throughout the since the Torah was given, the concept of to give your life, al kiddush Hashem, to have mesiras nefesh, to die for Hashem, that is a command that in the Torah that we have to keep. But with Avraham Avinu, he didn't have a command. You must sacrifice your son, because Hashem said to him, he didn't say it wasn't in a way of command, it was in a way of please. And the reason why it's in a way of please, the first thing he said was please because we need you to prove that all the other 9 are valid. But another interpretation of please is please do it, because really you don't have to do it, because really, I already promised you. I already gave you a promise that your children are going to come from Yitzchak. So really, for me to ask you to sacrifice your son, that's not really fair. That goes against what in this promise. So
Right, that's
In the end, okay, the promise came true. So did he believe that Hashem was gonna do what he promised, however he promised? So maybe that's how he was able to do it with, he did it with the heart, but he was able to do it because he knew that Hashem promised him his generations to be his son. At that point, Yitzchak did not have any children yet. So however Hashem's gonna do it, he's gonna do it.
okay, we'll see. Ultimately, we're going to see what motivated him but it's all great answers and great discussion. Amazing. Okay, so now we're gonna rebut that. We're gonna say, okay, fine. Okay, so we're saying Hashem didn't directly command him. He could have finagled himself out of it. He could have gotten a pass, right? But now we're gonna say, what do you mean? However, Hashem came to Avraham and said, please sacrifice your son. If Hashem came to you today, okay, and said, please sacrifice your son, or whatever Hashem said, there'll be no ifs, ands, or buts. If Hashem appeared to you and asked you to do something, how could you refuse? Doesn't matter what if it says yes, please, no, please, command, who cares? Whichever language he uses. So when God himself asks for something, then then for sure you're forced to do it. Especially someone like Avraham Avinu. If Avraham Avinu, he was so great. If Hashem appears to him and asks him to do something, then that's the greatest. Then for sure Avraham would do it. Even we would do it, and we're not Avraham. And you could say, oh, in later generations, people sacrificed their lives because there was a command to do so. But there are many times, there are many times throughout history where people sacrificed their life and it wasn't even a command, because you only have to give up your life for 3 Aveiros, right? For Gila Arayos, for Shvichas Damim, and for Avodah Zarah. But for kosher, for example, you're not obligated to die. If someone says, either eat this chaz or I'll kill you, you're not obligated to give up your life. However, there have been many times that people did give up their life to keep every single mitzvah, or not to eat trade for whatever it was, and they had to go and find the halachic reasoning for why they could give up their life. Sometimes in Exeres Hashmad, there are circumstances that anything that the Goyim tell us to do, then you're obligated to give up your life. There's halachas for these kind of things. My husband's great grandfather, he was living in Leningrad during the time of the Holocaust. And there was a siege. The Germans made a siege around Leningrad. There was no food coming in, and there was no kosher food. And my husband's great grandfather died, and he left 2 kids, an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old girl. And he died, although he didn't know who's going to take care of his kids, because he would not refuse to eat not kosher meat. So that's just one example, but there's so many stories of people that gave up their life, even if they weren't directly commanded or halachically, absolutely had to do it, that they did. So to say that what was so special about the Akedah, because Avram could have gotten out of it, because Hashem, he had this loophole, he had a leeway out, because Hashem had given him this promise. So say that's not what makes Akedah so special, because Hashem came and appeared to him and told him to do it, so for sure he would do it. And to say, and to say that we had to, in our generations, we were obligated to have Mesiras Nefesh, and Avram didn't. Well, there are many people that, even though they weren't obligated to give up their life in later generations, did so as well. So that can't be it. There's got to be something deeper. There's another story during the time of the Holocaust. I actually heard this story in Lakewood. I went once to an event. And the point of the story was to show about the greatness and the importance of fulfilling mitzvahs. So there were 2 inmates in I don't know which camp it was, and one was a rabbi and one was his good friend. And Pesach was coming. So the rabbi turns to his friend and he says, I really, really want matzah. I really want to have matzah on Pesach. Is there anything you think you could do to somehow? He worked in the kitchen to get us matzah. So he said, I'll try. And as Pesach is coming closer, and somehow, miraculously, he's able to get some flour and water, and he's able to make 2 matzahs, or the equivalent of enough matzah for 2 people for Pesach for one night. And he has this matzah, and he's hiding it in his prison clothes, and he's on his way back to the barrack with his prize, and all of a sudden a Nazi sees him trying to hide something, and he beats him to a pulp for trying to hide this matzah. So he almost died just trying to make matzah and to have matzah for Pesach. So there is no obligation to give up your life or to sacrifice your life or to put your life in danger to have matzah on Pesach in the camps. But he was beaten and the matzah was cracked, and then the Nazi was called away off to go somewhere else, and he picks up the few pieces of matzah that are from the floor, and now it's all crumbled up, and now there isn't enough matzah for 2 people anymore. There's basically enough matzah for 1 person, for a kazayas for the first night of Pesach. And he takes this matzah and his body's broken. And he comes to the rabbi and he says, I'm so sorry. I almost died for this. I have enough matzah for one of us, not for both of us. So the rabbi says, you know what? I don't know how he had the chutzpah, but he said, you know what? Let me eat the matzah and you'll get the mitzvah. So comes the Seder night, and this rabbi, he's so excited to eat the matzah. He got very excited about it. Maybe he made the blessing a little bit too loud. Anyway, he makes the blessing to eat the matzah, and he's caught red-handed, and he is killed. I don't know if he ate the matzah, didn't eat the matzah, but he was killed. And the friend, he survives the Holocaust. He's out of the war is over. He's in Israel, and it's close to Pesach, or I don't know exactly when it was. And he has a dream. And in the dream, his friend, the rabbi, comes to him and says, now I'm in a higher world and I see the value of this mitzvah. I'm coming to ask you if I could have the reward. Because I told you, I'll eat the matzah and you get the reward. I want the reward. So he went to his rabbi, and the rabbi said, listen, you could still live on this earth for many more years and eat matzah on Pesach. Tell him that he could have the reward for the matzah. Just to show that a neshama should come from heaven to request the reward for a matzah, how amazing the mitzvah is, especially when it came with such self-sacrifice. So again, a story like this, no one was asking, Hashem is not asking you to give up your life to eat matzah. Yes, yet this individual gave up his life because he wanted to eat matzah on Pesach, and the one who got it baked almost died as well. So we see throughout history that even if we weren't obligated, still we were ready to die for a mitzvah.
How is it even justifiable? What you just said is that when a person, let's say, has to do an Vayeira, but he's still able to stay on this earth and accomplish and do something on mitzvah. It's like, why is that a good thing? If our purpose is to be in this world and to do mitzvahs and make this world a holy place. So if Hashem didn't command that you should die just because you're eating kosher, why would a person think that that's a virtue?
Right.
If not kosher, die.
Okay, that's an excellent question.
I'm thinking.
You still have the opportunity to be in this world and do so
Right.
many more mitzvahs and do even tshuva because it was such a poor sin.
Are you saying like, I was thinking the same thing, like it's not a virtue if it's not really halacha, like happened today, we do everything, like it's a chutz of sota, and like, why is that, I mean, they were confused in halacha, it's not like they're gonna get back to.
It's an amazing question. So I'll answer the question.
Yeah. Let's go.
I'll answer the question with a story. It's a great question.
This question, you have to make giving sins, and the whole thing gets that. God doesn't want to die.
Somebody's not kosher, right? And chooses not to be not kosher and die.
That's not looked upon as good.
Why is that virtuous to be above?
It's because
What would be more virtuous is to be in this world and do one of the.
Hashem wants us to live, his goal is to live, he's not looking us to find ways to die. He wants-
Right now, our purpose as human beings is to do.
Right, Hashem wants us to live.
That's funny. That's why he told us these three things are what.
Right, and that's-
Don't find the loophole.
Exactly.
Right, but you know what? You know what? Okay,
It's
so
like it was only as questions or as silence.
to disagree with you, but I haven't.
This is a very touchy topic, like that stories like this, and I'm told that you're supposed to ask, it's not the right thing, that's, and a big grab is usually not me, I'm not making.
But it's it.
Hard to know.
I think people in the war were confused.
How much?
Well, that's what I'm saying, you look at them like.
Right,
you don't,
right,
like, I
right.
wouldn't look at them as an example, like they were in a situation where they didn't have anywhere to go, that was to them, but it wasn't like the normal today.
Or like, you know what, so this person said
They're
that
like-
his grandfather had come from when he was in a trade club place. And he realized that his grandfather died because of kosher, okay? So towards the end of the war, when the Americans were coming in, some Nazi came to this person and says, you eat this, you're gonna be saved, I won't kill you. So he didn't, so what ended up happening, he died. truthfully, he probably would have killed him anyway. And then again, it was a Kiddush Hashem, so when you're saying about treif and the three mitzvos, when you're all in this horrible situation, like Kosenberg Rebbe said, he didn't end up eating treif. He didn't eat any cooked food. He was in such a high level, it wasn't like, oh, I want to die for this. I want my body to have as much kedusha as possible.
So that's
And-
selfish.
And that was it, so. Is it being selfish?
Yeah, because if a person can live in this world and do mitzvahs and make this world a place for Hashem.
Also goes to another one of you said about,
So it ends-
Hannah says supposed to keep us to, all this question, but I'm sure that this has a different, but
Okay,
it's very confusing things.
Not to die, right, when it's kosher. So right when he got there, he said, Hashem, I really want to do this mitzvah of kosher. And everybody ran right away to eat the soup and whatever it was, and he went to the barracks and he just spoke to Hashem. And like a half hour later, somebody came and said they were looking for him. He goes, oh, okay, they're looking for you to kill me. And meanwhile, they brought him with bread and jam because, okay, you just answered it for me. I did not have to. So I guess, and even at the end of the war, when it was over, so maybe he was making Kiddush Hashem the whole time. He didn't tell other people, and when someone asked him something, he goes, no, you eat. This is what you need to do to sustain yourself. So I think what you're saying also is, we know now it's three mitzvahs, whatever it is. But if you keep on thinking about it, it's like, okay, so I'll eat a treif meal. I'm out of town. There's only treif. I'm just gonna eat it. But look, the grandfather died because he didn't want to eat treif. Why did he do that? Because we're so ingrained.
okay, okay. so-
We're so ingrained to eat the kosher that we're not thinking of it as a thing. When you sit around the class, you could say, oh yeah, they're only really.
I'm not judging other people.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay,
okay. So I could add, it's a great question. And I have to do more research. And because there is a concept that there are certain times in history when the Goyim are, there is a time, I don't know, I have to, do some research, but there is a time that for anything you have to give up your life. Even tying a shoelace, like if our ways, how we tie our shoes. If the Goyim want us to do it differently, because
That was Kiddush Hashem.
If it's time to do because that's serving their God, then it's considered something.
okay, so we have plenty of homework to do, but I'll just answer a part answer with a story. There was a story, I don't know which rabbi it was, but there was a year that was very, very difficult to find esrogim. I don't know if this is Poland or Russia, whatever it was, and so there's a whole city and there's not one esrog in the whole city. And there was a businessman that was passing through, and he was on his way home for Sukkot, and he had an esrog. So they said to him, please, can you stay in the city for Sukkot, and then the entire town, the entire city, whatever, will be able to use your esrog on Sukkot. And he said, I really don't want to. My family's waiting for me. This wasn't my intention. I really don't want to. So whoever was the Rebbe at the time of that congregation, of that city, he said, you know what? If you stay, I will give you my Olam Haba, or you'll have Olam Haba next to me, or whatever it is. You have a great place in Olam Haba. I promise you, if you stay here and let us all use your esrog. So he said, okay, fine, I'll stay. Then the Rebbe sent the shamish, his attendant, to every single person's house, and he said, comes the night of Sukkot, no one should allow him to come and eat in their sukkah. If he wants to eat in a sukkah, tell him to come to the rabbi. No one's allowed to allow. No one. The rabbi says no one's allowed to let him in. So comes the first night of Sukkot. He wants to eat in the sukkah. He comes knocking on someone's door. Says, "Sorry, we're not allowed to let you in." No one lets him in. They say, if you want to eat in a sukkah, you have to go to the rabbi. Comes to the rabbi. He says, "I understand. This is how you treat me. I stayed here, so you could all use my esrog, and now no one's going to let me eat in a sukkah on Sukkot." So he said, "Okay, I'll let you come and eat in my sukkah if you take back if you give me back the Olam Haba. That means that you make this promise that I made null and void. You could eat in my sukkah, but you can't have the Olam Haba. That you can't have my Olam Haba anymore. You have to give it back. You have to give it back." So that what? So he's like, this is so unfair. He thought about it and he said, "Fine, I don't need your Olam Haba. I want to do the mitzvah of eating in the sukkah. And he comes in and he eats in the sukkah, and then the Rebbe tells him, you know what? Now you earned Olam Haba. You will get it at the end. But he had a choice, either Olam Haba or the mitzvah of eating in the sukkah. Now, why are you eating the mitzvah? Why are you eating in the sukkah? Because you want Olam Haba. Here you have Olam Haba. Who needs to sit in the sukkah? But a yid, if especially out of the Hasidic perspective, a yid is a chelek alekah mimah, an actual piece of God. So a yid wants to do Hashem's will. I don't need your Olam Haba. I don't need Olam Haba. I just want to have opportunity to do a mitzvah. So you could tell a Jew, look, you don't have to die for keeping kosher. As a matter of fact, it's even a shaila. If you do eat treif, then it's a shaila. I'm sorry. If you give up your life not to eat treif, it's a shaila. If you're even doing the right thing according to halacha. And most people will eat the treif because that's what we're supposed to. Halacha says, eat the treif and live another 120 years, right? But there are some people that are so great and so holy that say, you know what? I don't care. I don't need Olam Haba. I don't need Olam Haba. I just will not eat. I refuse to eat not kosher because I can't put it in my mouth. I will not do it. And I don't care. Olam Haba, I can't separate myself from Hashem at this moment to eat the not kosher food. And that's obviously a very, very high level. So
that's a high level we all say. I think that in general, that's what I learned as Lamancha. I think Lamancha is just for your sake, not for Olam Haba. So I'm just saying it goes to like that reward of like when we're doing it is because there's no agenda here. There's no reward. We're just doing it Lamancha. That's the level we strive to.
Okay. Okay. Amazing. Everyone is saying amazing stuff. Everything's true. Everything. Okay. Okay. So we see that Adam Avinu. Yeah, you could argue and you could say that Adam didn't have to do it, but there are many people in history that also didn't have to, and they did it anyway. So now we need to find now we have to keep trying to find a reason what makes that Akedah so special. It's not because he sacrificed his son, and it's not because he had a way out. So what's so special about it? Okay, so here's someone, I think Chani actually said this. What was so special about Avram? What's so unique about the Akedah? We said it every single day, and that this is greater than any self-sacrifice, any Mesiras Nefesh ever happened ever. What's so great about it? He was the first one to overcome the challenge of self-sacrifice. And all beginnings are difficult. However, once Avram opened the pathway of self-sacrifice, the potential for such service was drawn into the world. So Avram, he activated this potential for the rest of us to have Mesiras Nefesh, Kalas, Chalas, Kashrus. All beginnings are difficult. Avram was the one who opened up the channel for the rest of us to do this, and therefore he is so great. But we're going to fight. We're going to argue that as well. What? Okay. What's the argument?
He was already promised. He knew before the head that he was going to have descendants from Yitzchak. So Hashem said, please do this, sacrifice your son. He didn't understand why. Doesn't make sense to him. But okay, I know something's going to happen. Hashem's going to finagle something. I'm going to have my descendants come out of Yitzchak, but I'm going to do it anyway, even though I have no idea why I'm asked. But I'm going to do it. And to me, I don't even know if he was afraid.
That's what I say. Because he knew that Hashem had promised him that there's going to be a way that he's going to come through.
Okay, so yeah.
I think he didn't know that his son was going to come from him. I think he gave up. He didn't know.
I don't think he. Yeah.
I think the whole thing that tested that he didn't. That he gave up that promise. That's the whole thing. Like Hashem promised me, and now there's no way possible. Like he's in that point of like, if I'm killing my son, and I have this promise, it's so against God telling me so. That's where the ultimate test is.
In a human mind.
It didn't make. That's why
Hashem told me this.
That's why it was such a big test because
but he knew that Hashem did not lie.
and that's why it was a big test.
But he was giving up. He was giving up that promise
exactly.
when he had that knife in his hand, and he was about to. I'm saying that was it. Hashem told him to do it. There was no way out.
Yeah.
There was no way out. It defied logic.
Exactly.
What?
He knew deep down he doesn't have to do this. One second.
This is a test. He knew it was a test.
Before, while he was there, while he was doing it.
And that's why it was a test. They did it.
He could have gotten out of it. He could have gotten out of it before he went.
Right.
But once he's there, once he's there with the knife in his hand, he thought this was it. He thought he was giving up the promise. Yes, Hashem promised him, but he didn't. He didn't. According to the story, it doesn't seem like he thought, oh, there's gonna be a way out. He was asked to slaughter his son. He was giving up the promise.
What's the biggest part of the sacrifice that we told everyone we don't sacrifice?
Yeah.
That's what she said in the beginning. Okay, amazing. So everything's right. But we could even argue this. Okay, so we're saying what makes that Akedah so great? Aaron was the first person to do it. He was the first person. He opened up the channel, gave us all the possibility. But we could argue that because
No, he actually went to save himself.
Yeah.
There were things against him that he went in. and he
okay, no problem.
But why are we arguing this? If this is then made him the father of us, where self-sacrifice is him. So why do we need to argue this more? Why not accept it?
We're trying to figure out what's so great about the Akedah. What is so great about it? There are so many other Jewish martyrs throughout history. What's so great?
The
So
bris also was pretty good.
So we're
I said the bris every day. That's what I'm thinking. So the bris was also a big thing. Take a kid and take a bris. I didn't know. So that was also one of the tests, right? Not test, but the whole thing about the bris. Like, why was this the highlight?
Why is this the highlight? Especially since you could say, okay, Abram was the first, but guess what? Ur Kasdim came before the Akedah. Avram jumped into the fiery, he was pushed, whatever, into a fiery furnace. What happened? He broke the idols, his father's idol shop, and Terach took him and threw him into a fiery furnace. And that was self-sacrifice. That came first. So if you're going to say Avram is the first one, that's why that Akedah is so great. Why that Akedah? What make a big deal about Ur Kasdim? Ur Kasdim came first. That was the first time that Avram sacrificed his life. Okay, so we argue that also, and we said that in history, Chana gave up 7 sons. They're in history, other people gave up their lives as well. So we're taking every single angle and we're trying to figure out what is so special about the Akedah. Why don't we say Ur Kasdim? Aaron was the first one with Ur Kasdim. He was ready to jump into the fire to die for his beliefs. Why is that not the most amazing? Why is that Akedah going to prove that all validity to the other 9 tests? Ur Kasdim was one of the tests, and that was the first opportunity. That was the first time that he was ready to sacrifice his life. Avram expressed the potential for self-sacrifice long before the challenge of the Akedah. By Ur Kasdim, the king desired to kill him, and he was saved only because Hashem made a big miracle on his behalf. His life was over. Hashem made the fire turn to a garden, and his life was saved. But he jumped. He was in the fire. The challenge of Ur Kasdim appears to be even greater than that of the Akedah. Why? The Akedah, Avram told him to do it. I'm sorry, Hashem told him to do it. Hashem said, Kach no, but Hashem told him to do it. By Ur Kasdim, there was no divine command telling him to confront this difficult challenge posed to him. Hashem didn't appear to him until Lech Lecha. So here, Ur Kasdim seems so much greater. Number one, it was the first time. And number two, he did it completely on his own. Hashem didn't tell him anything. Hashem never appeared to him. Okay? So in order to answer all these questions, we have to understand what is Mesiras Nefesh. What is the quality of Mesiras Nefesh? And what does it mean that Avram opened the pipeline of Mesiras Nefesh to the world? Mesiras Nefesh requires absolute bittul, which is the antithesis of being a created being. When Hashem creates created people, Hashem created a created being feels his own personal identity. And a created being on their own doesn't have the power to rise above their own identity. For example, if a person is in jail, he can't free himself from jail. You need someone else to come and get you out. So a human being a human means that you feel your own identity. And Mesiras Nefesh is the opposite. Mesiras Nefesh is that you're completely batal, that you have no identity. So what happened was, what's so great about the Akedah? What's so great? That through Avram Avinu was able to reach a power that is much higher than existence. And he opened up this pipeline of Mesiras Nefesh, and he gave his descendants the potential to tap into a godly potential, which is above the limits of nature. So if you need running water in your house, right? You need a pipeline to get it from somewhere else. Human beings on our own, we don't have the ability for Mesiras Nefesh because we are, by definition, people that feel their own identity. So you need a pipeline, you need a source from somewhere else to have that power for Mesiras Nefesh. Avram Avinu is one who gave it to us. He was able to reach a place higher than existence. He opened up the pipeline, brought this power that's way above us, and gave it to us as a legacy. That's what Mesiras Nefesh means. Mesiras Nefesh means that a person who feels their own identity is able to give up their identity, which doesn't make sense because it's the antithesis of being a created being. So now I ask a question. We see that this concept of giving up your life is also found among non-Jews. So what's so special about Avram Avinu opening up this pipeline for the Jewish people? We see that non-Jews are also the suicide bombers ready to give up their life also. The fact that a person is willing to sacrifice his life for God does not necessarily show that he has achieved a true expression of Mesiras Nefesh and self-transcendence. Why? Because he understands logically that self-sacrifice is better for him than remaining alive. By giving up his life, he will gain something that is more valuable to him. So all these non-Jews who give up their life for their religion, it's not true Mesiras Nefesh, because there is an agenda, there is a gain. There is something they're going to get 70 virgins in heaven. Their family is going to get money. Their street will be named after them. They're nobody now. They'll get honor. They'll get fame. Who knows what they're going to get? If they give up their life. So if there's a gain to your Mesiras Nefesh, that's not Mesiras Nefesh. If your existence, if your identity will benefit, then that's not the definition of Mesiras Nefesh. And there's different benefits that you could get. A person could realize that he will perish in this world, but he expects a reward in the world to come. Or the person is willing to sacrifice his life because he feels that through his death, the values and the ideals with which he identifies and for which he stands will thrive. So that's why Or Kasdim wasn't the ultimate, because by jumping into the fire of Or Kasdim, then everything that he believed for, everything that he taught, he was dying for his belief. He was making a statement. There was going to be some gain. Everything that he taught that would thrive. His lesson would thrive, and that's why there was a personal gain, and therefore that is not ultimate Mesiras Nefesh. True Mesiras Nefesh, by contrast, involves complete self-sacrifice. The person sacrifices his soul, his very self. He gives himself utterly over to God, dedicating himself to him beyond all sorts of logical reasonings or feelings. He thinks about God's will, not himself or his values. Such a person is utterly batal to Hashem to the extent that his own identity, values, or beliefs are of absolutely no concern to him. Mesiras Nefesh means when you're ready to give up your soul, your values, your identity, everything, because you don't exist anymore. You don't feel your existence. You are not in the picture whatsoever.
That's what I said.
So it's just being with us. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
So it goes back to what I
Yes.
was saying, like that was the moment where everything he did till now, Or Kasdim, was to show the world that there's no paganism.
Yes.
And this is the
yes.
opposite. This is like not about me anymore, because I look like the biggest. There's no me anymore. Everything I said, I'm nothing. It's just about God.
Right.
So that's how it was.
Right. Because, go ahead.
Feel the question even stronger.
Well,
Because if God said you should only die for this, X, Y, Z, and you
whatever, are doing the opposite, then.
So
It's
again,
not because if it's God's will, it's not God's will. God said, Sichos and Vayeira. So you're deciding it feels good for you.
Well, look,
So that-
they don't do it because
You're
you can't imagine to
beliefs.
not be
Right.
one Hashem through Vayeira. But still, I would think that in serious matters is putting that
Aside.
moment aside for the sake, because if you're saying the purpose of human beings is to make this place a dwelling place for Hashem and to pick up the sparks. If that person lives for another 30 years, he just has so much more ability to do that. So it's putting yourself aside for that one moment of human trade, because it's not about my body getting trade for whatever, how my to live in this world to do Hashem's will. That I would think
I
is one of
think it's just a
the
different approach, like, different people have a different approach, because like, in a few years ago, example of like that COVID, there were people who, remember when it was like, people were dying and people still prayed with like a mini, I don't know if you had- whatever, and some people were like horrified, and some people were like, what do you mean, I needed that with the minion. Right. And
No,
the
it's a
people
good
who were like
example.
horrified were like, this is what we're supposed to be doing, like, you're supposed to be quarantining.
There's
That's
no-
like,
Individual,
and
and
then the other people, they're like,
I don't think it's a right or wrong, I think it's an individual that which decision is putting me aside and doing the will of Hashem? If there was no right and wrong in that situation, it's a personal judgment call.
What about not vaccinating your
I feel
kids? People say the same thing, anything, that's example, that's anything medical field, they're not gonna do, I'm not gonna take medication because, you know,
And then living in small hunger.
that's a good question.
so,
People do.
so I think that is for us, that is how we live, absolutely. But I think that there's a very, very, very high level. It's a very, very
Not be able to be not one with Hashem. They couldn't imagine being putting themselves in.
yes, yes.
Not being one. And
But
so that
even-
question is over if it means not being one for the moment.
Yes, and there's even something not only can I not be separated for Hashem for a second, but there's even a higher level. The higher level is that there is no me. There is no, the person truly doesn't feel himself at all.
Isn't they desecrate Hashem's name?
Hashem does not command. There is a need. You're putting
We
me in
can't-
the picture, 'cause
I think.
I know, but
I think
we-
the question is that when you have a minion, no one else is being, at that moment, they're not giving up their lives about someone saying something against God. When you're God against them, you have to give your life to this, and someone's gonna say that there's God and no God, right? That's what Hashem, like at that point, you have a minion, no one's saying to you at that moment, don't pray to your gods, they just want to go pray. But there was no one on top of them, like, let's say the Nazis were saying,
No,
there
but
was-
why, no, but the same, meaning to say that people did it for the sake of Shem's mind.
no, but only comes to, so only Krishna Hashem, actually, I have a book, I have to bring in a book from a rapper. 3 years ago, a rapper gave a whole share on this. Proof, I said it to last night, we got rapper again, remember I went? So the whole share was about what it means, like Krishna Hashem, was very clear, I forgot about it, but he went to points of where it becomes Krishna Hashem.
Okay, so you know what?
No, there's a mind of when you post a dialogue, like you said at the beginning, there's a point of like when it becomes point, like let's say you're saying someone could say go down, fly down says idol, or I'm gonna kill you, that's called consent, but not to daven a minion, that's not someone threatening your Krishna cause. I'm saying that's where I think the nuance is.
her husband's great grandmother deciding not to eat the tree.
Well, maybe it was showing I think when you were in the Holocaust, I'm thinking this now, they were against these Nazis who were saying Jews are bad, and they were saying, no, I'm gonna do this with Hashem, where we could say personally in a little backyard, there's no one's doing that, we're not making Hashem's name desecrate, that's the nuance here. You're in your backyard, no one's telling you, there's a big illness going around, and Hashem doesn't want to die, wants to live, you're right, but if someone would come in and said, you guys better, do this, or showing the world that Hashem, that's the get, that's the thing here.
That alters Hashem, you can say that he was gonna prove.
It's when you're proving that Hashem isn't,
Because.
right, it has to be that proof.
Fine, but that has to say that a person can only not do a mitzvah if for the Hashem involved. That's always the case.
What do you mean, not do a mitzvah?
Means that it's not.
Meaning, let's say you don't eat the tree because there's a pitch.
Don't trick?
Okay, there's one piece here that we could try to answer the question. The answer is the word is logic. As soon as we're starting to make a logical calculation, maybe this, maybe that. We're going to have a whole shakla retire. We're going to have a whole, go to the Rav and start asking questions, right? As soon, but I'm saying, logically, it makes sense, eat the treif, and then you have another 120 years to live. As soon as we're taking our mind, and we're having a discussion, and we're debating this halacha, that halacha, this is what should be that halacha. The thing is that what the incredible thing of the Akedah, the bottom line is, why is Avraham sacrificing his son? You know why? For no reason. It made no sense. There was no agenda. There was no one there to see it. There was no news reporters. There was no point. It was pointless. There was no gain whatsoever on any level. It was the most illogical thing in the world.
Because we're human, there's always, as much as we work towards, let's say, even like, I do chesed for someone, right? There's a good feeling, right? So is that good feeling ego? Right? And if I tell someone that I have to love, I enjoy cooking meals for people. So am I telling now someone knows that? So then there is an agenda.
Usually, because we're human, yes, and we have an identity. Human beings, yes, we do very, very wonderful things. Jews, non-Jews, we do very wonderful things, but somewhere, even if it means giving up our life, even if we have to give up our life, there is a point, there is an agenda, there is a olam haba, there is another world, there is a mitzvah, there is a halacha, whatever it is, there could always be there is some kind of point, there's some kind of gain. There was a kiddush Hashem, you sanctified God's name, you did the right thing, your soul wasn't separated from Hashem, whatever it is. But in this case,
it's not a bad agenda.
It's not a bad agenda, it's a holy agenda, a holy agenda. But what's unique and different and special about the Akedah is that Avraham Avinu went to a place that's above existence. He got a pipe. He went somewhere else. He went to a realm that's above existence to draw down a pipeline. And he was the first one, specifically at the Akedah, when there was no logical reason whatsoever. And what Avraham Avinu did was he gave us a legacy. He imprinted in the DNA of every single Jew that will ever be born throughout history, that every single Jew has the power to do what? To have Mesiras Nefesh, but not just a Mesiras Nefesh that's for an agenda, that there is something good that could come out of it, that there is some point, some gain, some olam haba, some virtue, some schar, some kiddush Hashem. He gave us the ability that we could have real Mesiras Nefesh, the kind of Mesiras Nefesh that Avraham Avinu had, where there is no one watching, and there is no gain, and there is no point, and it makes no sense, and there's no reason whatsoever. That's what Avraham Avinu imparted to every single Jew. So even if later on in history there'll be a Jew and it will seem like they dial Kiddush Hashem, or they have Mesiras Nefesh, whatever it is, and it seems like, oh, but there's a gain, but there's a purpose, but there's a reason, maybe in another world, and you could argue, oh, maybe that Mesiras Nefesh wasn't 100%, but if you go deep down and you dig, you'll see that every single Jew, no matter what and no matter who, actually does have the true level of Mesiras Nefesh. And the reason why they gave up their life wasn't for another reason, wasn't for any kind of gain, wasn't for that they should be connected, they shouldn't be connected, they shouldn't be disconnected even for 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Everything's put aside. Every Jew, by virtue of the fact that we are the children of Avraham Avinu, we have the ability for true and complete and Mesiras Nefesh on the level of Avraham Avinu, that we do it for no reason, for no purpose, just because Hashem said. Okay. I just want to catch. Give me a second here. By or custom, his willingness to sacrifice his life to publicize the faith in God to all mankind, that was motivated by logic. But By the Akedah, there was no purpose. It was only motivated by the fact that you are God-fearing. That's what Hashem says at Yirei Elokim Ata. And therefore, Avraham Avinu was ready to do this because he had fear of God. No one, not even the young men who accompanied him on the journey, was present. The roots planted by Avraham would have been uprooted. There would have been no one, God forbid, to continue the task of publicizing God's presence in this world. There was no one to see. Who would hear? They could think that an animal came and ate up his son. No one would know. No one would know that Hashem told Avram to kill his son. No one would ever know that no one saw it. There was no one. There was no eyewitness. There was no CNN or anyone to come and report it. No one would ever know. There was no purpose. And everything he worked so hard to plant, everything would be uprooted, and there would be no one to continue his task of publicizing God's presence in the world. He did it only because God desired and asked for it. There was no basis in logic. It was complete expression of bittul. He gave over the very essence of his soul to God. Mesiras nefesh mamish etzem umamoshos hanefesh. He gave the essence of his soul he was ready to give to Hashem.
Wouldn't you say that he was supposed to have a very fearful part of the Mesiras?
Yeah, absolutely. He asked his father to tie him up that he shouldn't move, that he should be a pure carbon. And therefore, going back to our original question, when he passed the test of the Akedah, he demonstrated retroactively that his overcoming, that all the other 9 tests has also been motivated by true self-sacrifice, complete and utter transcendence, to fulfill Hashem's will with a total commitment to God, and that even when he did Akastim, it wasn't for any logical reason, but it was only for Hashem. And he endowed every Jew with the potential for true and utter Mesiras Nefesh, making this the true, deep inner will of every Jew, that this is what a Jew actually desires. The logical explanations are all superficial. Okay, now what does this have to do with us? We're not in Israel, and our sons are not fighting in Gaza right now. But what does this mean for us today? In his Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe writes. The Alter Rebbe is the first Chabad Rebbe. It is proper to recite every day the passage of the Akedah, to recall the merit of the patriarchs before the Holy One, blessed be He. This also serves to make one's natural inclination submit to the service of Hashem. When we read the Akedah and we see that Avraham Avinu was ready to sacrifice his son for Hashem, what does this remind us? That we should be ready to sacrifice our Yetzer Hara to serve Hashem. So what our Yetzer Hara wants, this dress that the neck is a little bit low. So what? Where's your sacrifice? Where's your Mesiras Nefesh? Okay. So we could say, how could you compare the efforts of every Jew to overcome his Yetzer Hara in his daily life? How could that be compared to Yitzchak's complete and total self-sacrifice, to Yitzchak's self-sacrifice? This, however, is the result of Avraham's opening the pipeline of genuine Mesiras Nefesh, as it is reflected in all the particular elements of the divine service of every Jew, each one being Avram's descendant. Every Jew is Avram's son and heir, and therefore, his efforts to make his natural inclination submit to the service of Hashem does resemble Yitzchak sacrificing himself. Wherever a Jew labors to conquer his personal desires and performs an act in God's service, it is like Avraham is leading him to the Akedah. For the true will and inner motivation of every Jew is to give himself over entirely to Hashem. Okay, so it's not just something that we read every single day in the davening. It's not just something with Avram and Yitzchak, but rather because in our DNA, we have as a legacy this gift from Avram Avinu that just like Avram was able to sacrifice Yitzchak and Yitzchak was willing to go along with it, we have the power in today's day and age to do the right thing and to sacrifice our Yetzer Hara, our animal soul, to do what Hashem wants. And every time we don't give in, we are doing what Avram Avinu did. It's not just something then, it's something that it's a work for us every single day. Every single day we have the power. We have the power to sacrifice things that are important to us for the sake of Hashem. Okay, let's go practical.
Sometimes we do have an agenda of like, what our day, how we want our day to look like, what milestones we want to be at, or our kids to be at, or whatever, and accepting Hashem's agenda of where we are now, and giving up like what we thought was good, what we wanted, all that stuff.
100%. 100%.
Like doing something. I was do something for Hashem, but just like living life on a regular day-to-day life, things come up.
Exactly. The question is, what does Hashem want from me to be able to put myself aside, what I want, what yes.
That's how we're, and this is, how do you bring it down? That was a good word, so practical level.
What's the
How
question?
do we connect this to
What's the
the
question?
here and now, the day-to-day life?
So first of all, we have to know that we have that power. We have to know that we have the power for self-sacrifice today that we could give up.
Things that come up that maybe it makes me realize like I had a different agenda than what
Hashem wants, right?
When I accept that, that is aligning myself with Hashem's agenda,
Right,
which is sacrifice in a sense,
Right.
because there's
right. So
there's
so
deployment
this is
that's
like,
where-
maybe this would be helpful. Like yesterday, I made a bris. Holly Riley is my machatanim. So he spoke at the bris and he was saying, like he brought up like where am I holding? Like to do Hashem's will. Came over, we both have bris, the zrizos, and it's connected to why we do it early in the morning, a bris, because it's the first thing that is zrizos, and we put, I don't know the whole thing, but one of the examples he gave was he was there to Israel, and one of his rabbis, where his week goes by, he asked him, said, do something to go to a big tzaddik and to get up in the middle of the night, whatever it was, something hard. And he's like thinking in the middle of the night to go and have to go and go to this rabbi. He was like the whole thing to get, and like he's like, then I'm not saying all details, but then the rabbi said, he's like, let's say it look like this. If I ever told you that to pick up this money and you're gonna go get the money, like transaction, you got $5 million for it, you're gonna run, right? So think about like where am I holding? Like where's my zvidas? Like let's say he was giving example the football game's on. Am I gonna think mincha, or do I have to make mincha after the game? Like that's like where am I holding? The same thing. Where am I doing in life? Like you sit and take a check in, like checking yourself. Like what? How far am I going to go? It's almost like a gauge, like personally, you sit back, let's slow down, like not to say you need to be, everybody's on their own level, everybody's on their path, but like when you sit and slow down and say, think, like, where am I holding? What's my more important thing? Like, everybody has their level, and like when you can sit and stop and say, you know what? Where am I running to? Am I running to, is it because Hashem wanted to, or I'm doing it because I'm getting a personal gain from it?
I feel like when it comes to this, to me, it's just thought. I need more practical, like actually that I can embody.
Like what?
I don't know, I'm still
But each
questioning.
person's at a different
For
environment.
myself, for
Right,
myself.
okay.
So that's your own stuff.
You
I think it's like more.
Okay, so let's here. So we'll go back to Torah's source to make this practical. With Parai made a decree. And he said, Kol haben hayiloid hayeret hashlichuhu v'chol habas tachayun. What did Parai say? All the newborn baby boys should be thrown into the Nile, and all the girls you should let live. What did that mean? What did Pari want? What was his plan? You know what Pari wanted? He wanted the Jewish baby girls you should let live, and the Jewish girls should intermarry with the Egyptians. That's what he wanted. So it's very, in today's day and age, when there is so many distractions, my neighbor's beautiful house, my neighbor's beautiful car, the clothing, the shoes, the boots, the makeup, the vacations, the materialism that we're so sunk into, and that becomes could become the front center of everything. And Mesiras Nefesh in today's day and age means to be able to realize that Hashem is number one, front and center, and that all these things are really a tool to be able to serve Hashem, and that's not the ikar, the vacation and the fancy cars and the fancy gashmis and the materialism, to be and to be able to say, you know what, I won't make this purchase and I'll give the money to tzedakah, or I'll whatever it is.
To be able to, what's the step before to be able to?
Think in a moment, what does Hashem want?
Right.
Before I get to the moment of what does Hashem want?
Always asking yourself, what, like she's saying, like you train, it's like a skill. You know, like, what does Hashem want from this name? That's a child. It's like, you have to learn a skill, you have to start something. So just saying all day, what does Hashem want from me this moment?
Said, you know, their children, right? And to go out of your zone, you know, whatever it is. So, you know, you come to shul and you're so happy that, okay, my kids saw me go to shul. But then when you don't get your first class ticket and you're so mad that the first class ticket wasn't available, what are you really showing them? So in that way, it's the same kind of thing. You have to kind of figure out what it is that you're thinking before. You know, like
Right,
you say,
Okay, yeah, but okay. So here are more examples. Okay, you have an opportunity. You have opportunity to. You're 20 years old. You have the whole world open in front of you. You're very, very good at. You're amazing with kids. You could be a phenomenal, amazing teacher. If you go and be a teacher is the lowest paying job. Right? So you could say so today to be a teacher. To teach in a yeshiva in a school is Mesiras Nefesh.
Can I just jump in here, because I don't think that's an example, because the husband has to learn. My daughter's in a situation now. If she was hearing now, she'd be crying. She was with a great teacher, she's the biggest asset. She loves every kid. And she's working in an office and she doesn't feel fulfilled. She's that type. There's no way she could do it. The husband's learning. She can't live on that. She can't even make a rent like that. It's a big problem. So
it's a big problem.
Get the salary job better. That's not, I hear you, but like there's literally like this serious nefesh, but it's also like there's no food to eat. So
Here we go. To this practical level, here we go.
So that's what Shem said. So this is not, this is the question. I say, okay, look, and the rabbis, can I jump in more? I have more to say in this topic. When it comes to shidduchim, coming now, goes here. Oh, marry a rich girl. They tell these young boys because you need to support you, but that's not what we're saying now, because that's very materialistic. The rich girl, I felt, but let's leave in this. So it's really, really sad because we
Okay, so when it comes to shidduchim,
she loves being a teacher,
Right.
and she teaches.
I think it's so individual.
Twice, 2 sets of teaching, because she knows if she needs anything, her parents are giving her.
Exactly.
And she is a teacher,
Right.
because that's what she wants to do, and that's what she loves to do.
so that's why every single one of us, wherever we are, we have to ask ourselves, what does Hashem need from me? What is my mission?
No, or people have to make the decisions. Well, that's the sort of
Send love a job.
To press and to be angry and to change whatever.
I guess going back to my daughter, I said for her, she's given up by not giving up her job and letting her husband, and they're living in a very small town. Whereas you see maybe in the situation where another girl has a passion, she has her father supporting her anyways, and she chooses the better because she has to get the fancier apartment. That's where you would see like.
Yeah, so what we're just bringing up.
Right, to go to the next level where she could go
Correct.
down and she's choosing, because I need to get the newest style apartments, you know? then she could say, maybe I could do my teaching because I don't need the newest apartment, the other part. Not between not living at all, between upping the level. And every person, like, we could say, what did I want now?
It's a
I
very-
can build a beautiful house that's used into the newest thing, or it's too big, but if I want to have gas, I don't need to have the design. I know my neighbors, there's people growing up, we look at them, you know they're rich, and they built big houses, very plain. You're like, what? That was his goal, just have a big house to have his kids, but he didn't need to not that house, right? Like learning to do things for the purpose. So I could have kids, can I have any creations, I have stuff party now, but what's your purpose?
And it's not just about money.
Yeah.
It's not just about money. I have a brother who's a Chabad rabbi in Iceland.
So
I'm saying-
about Iceland and the army, and
Yeah.
that was him.
Yeah.
I just read this week.
Yeah.
I just read about him, and I who lives in Iceland? I was like, wow.
But I'm saying they have to homeschool their kids,
I just
never get a break. There's no such thing as putting your baby in a babysitter, see you at 3:00. There is no such thing, there's no ice cream store and candy shop and ready-made challah and babka cake. You know what I'm saying?
Something like that.
There's a lot of tourist also. What I'm saying is, Mesiras Nefesh could be with money. It could be with there's so in so many different levels. Even if and even you have a child, you're making a wedding. Let's say you're making a wedding, right? And you have a choice. You could buy these kind of flowers, those kind of flowers, these kind of gowns, those kind of gowns. The more money you spend, the more money your neighbor has to spend to keep up with you. But if you say, you know what, I'll take less of this, I'll take less of that, and you know what, it might be a sacrifice for you because maybe you have the money and you could. But by you taking less, then your neighbor could take less, and then you're actually helping your neighbor. But I'm saying is that in every level, but again, we always have to ask ourselves. We always have to ask ourselves: is that Hashem should be in the front center always, and that's our guiding light.
She said something that
Yes. Yes.
It is like you're saying, it's something we have to learn. It's not going to be, some people have it naturally, but we need to slow down and learn to say before I do something, it's a learning, it's a skill. What does Hashem want me now? And that's, if you have to learn, it's not just practical, any skill.
Right. And we have to ask ourselves every single day, what am I doing today on a level of Mesiras Nefesh? It could be giving up a piece of juicy Lashon Hara. For you, it's for everyone. It's very hard. You have something on your tongue that you want to say, and you hold yourself back anytime you hold back your Yetzer Hara from doing from getting its way, from sitting in the driver's seat, and from being in control. Every single time you do that, that is Mesiras Nefesh. You wanted to, whatever it is. So this Shabbos might. Anytime that you squash Yetzer Hara and you say no to Yetzer Hara, that is Mesiras Nefesh. This Shabbos at 3:00, my 3-year-old and the baby wanted cholent. So I said, okay, I'll give you cholent. 3 p.m. the kids are eating, the 3-year-old and the baby are eating cholent in my house. This Shabbos. Yeah. So Shabbos is over early. 6 p.m. there's a pot of pasta on the stove because everyone else finished eating fleishik 6 hours before. So I had a brilliant idea. I said, okay, I'm going to take the pasta. I'm going to separate some without cheese. It's a 3-year-old, right? And then when I serve everyone, I'm going to serve the 3-year-old and the baby the pasta without the cheese, and everyone else have the cheese. She doesn't have to know the difference, right? Mommy, I want cottage cheese. She got the pasta without the cheese, but now she wants cottage cheese. I said to my husband, look, now it's already 7:00. It's been 4 hours. She only ate the potatoes, not the meat. She ate 2 bites. The kids, is a tiny thing. How long is it? 6 hours to digest it. But you know what? The answer is no. And when you say no, that is Mesiras Nefesh. For that 3-year-old who couldn't have her cottage cheese, and she didn't, that's Mesiras Nefesh, because you said no to the Yetzer Hara. And like we learned in Tanya this past week, our Yetzer Hara, it says, just give me a little bit. Just get 1 piece of chocolate, just 1 more video on YouTube, just 5 more minutes on the internet. And the more you give in, the hungrier it gets. And the more you starve it, the more satisfied it is. So we think you're going to give in just a little bit, open the door, just a little bit, just a crack to give in, and then the whole chocolate bar is gone. The Yetzer Hara knocks on the door, and we don't answer. We ignore him until the Yetzer Hara walks away. And every time we don't open the door to the Yetzer Hara, whatever it is, whether it's tznius, whether it's with kashrus, whether it's inviting that Shabbos guest that you know you have a hard time getting along with, you don't really have the space, whatever it is, any challenge, every single moment
It's a slippery slope because we're in today's day and age. How do you communicate properly? How do you, it could be different. So let's say I hosted Shabbos guest this week. So I have a rental house, okay? So when it's rented out, but like Monday, Tuesday, if it's not rented out for the week, like we get either family members come or, my brother-in-law had some Revelo that he's supposed to. And I said, instead of being hosted usually there, I said, bring it to us. Like this, I can enjoy my kids with the, then my kids stay home and then I invited my married couples. And I went over to the house yesterday to see what else I left there, and I was really disturbed. So there's a way to say it, like, would be Mesiras Nefesh would be like, I gave it and don't say anything, or Mesiras Nefesh would be, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? I was torn, and then Shasta came home from school in a really bad mood because he was like overtired and he acted out in school. He was very wild, and he was upset, and I was upset about something else. I took him out a little bit, and then we talked about like I was upset about something that happened to me, and I'm gonna, there's always disturbances, and how you handle your disturbances. When we're talking about it, like adults. He's 10 years old, and we're talking about it. So the question is how So there was a part that maybe should have not even got disturbed at all. This is what I said once.
No, or maybe it's a lesson next time.
No, but I'm talking about the Mesiras Nefesh part. Mesiras Nefesh, what would Mesiras Nefesh look like?
So basically, all I could say is as like we learn in Tanya, every single one of us has a body. The body is a vehicle, and there are two souls. There's an animal soul and the godly soul. They're both fighting for control over your body. Only one of them could win at a time. And we have to make sure as many moments as possible to give the keys. Only one person can be in the only one soul could be in the driver's seat at a time, to give the keys to the godly soul. And if you don't know, if you don't know, you're the heat of the moment, and you're nervous or you're upset, whatever it is, go find a Tehillim. When you're saying Tehillim at that moment, the God, for sure that the godly soul is in control.
Then this conversation with my son around 7 o'clock. And then I went back to the house because there were 2 more things that I didn't forget. And we got ready to bed. I went back to the house to go to the street. And I'm like, I was so okay already. Like, nothing even looked so disturbed. It was an interesting thing. I did feel like, okay, whatever, Hashem wanted this to get what. There was a part of me that felt like I'll finish Hashem, like whatever, what was the serious now. Like I felt like I ready, like, okay, fine, I'm leaving, like, this is what Hashem wanted, and it didn't even bother me anymore.
That's amazing. There you go.
It's a part that has to be discussed when certain people come. They don't have boundaries and they don't know how to value and respect other people's stuff. And that I saw.
I have an amazing story. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, I just want to have an amazing story that I must share. Thank you for reminding me. What is it? Our ultimate goal to be able to put ourselves aside and do Hashem's will. Now, this story is an amazing story. Okay. I'm gonna ask everyone for your attention for a couple of minutes. I just want to end with this amazing story. Okay?
They like this story.
Okay, I'll post it on the chat later. Once the Baal Shem Tov sat with his disciples for the festive meal of Rosh Chodesh, and his face was serious. The disciples knew from previous occasions things that would put the Rebbe in a more joyous mood, and they tried, but with no success. Then a certain village-dwelling Jew entered, named Reb David. Immediately upon his entry, the Baal Shem Tov was full of joy. He treated him warmly, gave him a place to sit, and also gave him a piece of his hamaitzi. This matter caused the disciples to have questioning thoughts. The whole holy society were not able to rouse joy, and only a villager was able to do so. The Baal Shem Tov sensed their questions and sent Reb David off to do something. And when he left, he said to them, "This Reb David works hard by the sweat of his brow for every penny he earns. During the year, he saves a penny at a time to buy an esrog for Sukkos, until he assembles the sum and travels to the city and buys an extremely fine one. And he has great joy from it. Since he is poor and his wife is of bitter spirit, it angered her considerably that he does not care about the condition of his household, since he spends money on an esrog and rejoices over it. In her bitterness, she broke the pitum of the esrog, rendering it puzzle, unfit for use. Now, besides the money that he spent on the esrog, there were many obstacles to bringing it, water to cross, bad roads, so that it all added up to much hard effort. Yet, when he saw what his wife had done, he was not angry, but said, "It appears that I am not worthy of such an esrog. Truly, does a simple Jew like me deserve such a fine esrog? From the time of the Akedah, the binding of Isaac," concluded the Baal Shem Tov, "there was not such a test of character, and therefore I treated him so warmly." So if you have you're angry. I invited these guests. They were so rude. They didn't.
Because we did ace it, like we say 1 to 10. Last time it was maybe 2, and now it was 8. So I'm saying, but maybe if
We're
I
all
knew
work-
that this was a pass, maybe I've not even gotten upset.
But if you are able to push aside your anger, and there's how many times a day do we have the test of anger, right? And things don't go our way, and to say, you know what, maybe I wasn't deserving, and not to get angry, that is major mesiras nefesh. So if you want practical, this is as practical as it gets.
In the moment, in the moment, it's the reaction to the moment, but it doesn't mean that in the future, we have to allow ourselves to be.
We don't have to allow ourselves to be a doormat.
I'm saying, in the moment, you gotta have anger in the moment.
So everything's a test. The thing is, I would think like we're in control. Like in the moment, I was like, well, I really would have thought about it and not said yes right away, and thought about what happened last time and a different time when I had these people, then I would say no in a very place. It doesn't really work for me. I wouldn't bring up old stories. I would just tell my husband, you know what, it doesn't work for me this week. Instead, what happens is I'm so generous and so giving and so loving, and for the most part, it was a beautiful Shabbos. It really was, because everybody brought their own food, and it was just like communal, and tons of people and tons of food, and it was really nice.
That's also where you get your extra star. Like everything went so well, that part, right, where like it didn't go well, you're getting your extra point.
Right. So when you have achnasas archim and everything goes well and everyone is happy and everyone acts like a mensch, that you get a beautiful mitzvah. That's wonderful. But you want mesiras nefesh. You want mesiras nefesh. Mesiras nefesh is when it hurts. Mesiras nefesh is when it hurts, not when everything's nice and dandy. My father would
Saying that it's yeah, I'm learning in like real estate. My coach just told me growth is in the discomfort.
Wow.
Not grow when you're comfortable.
Now then, this was
Instead,
helpful.
you invite somebody who's not reading.